colleague and friend from North Down for bringing this before the House with colleagues from the Communities Committee and his excellent contribution earlier to the debate. Some 5 years ago, I visited a house along with my colleague, Councillor Gareth McKee. Councillor Gareth McKee has subsequently stood down as a councillor and been replaced, and there has been an election since we visited that home 5 years ago in Silverstream. And as we visited the home, we were met by the parents of these two young girls, and the young mother was acutely embarrassed at the smell and the state of repair of the home. Very clear that she was immaculately clean, but there was only so much she could do. She asked us to visit the bedroom of these two young girls, and we went upstairs, and they were sleeping in bunk beds. There was mould on the walls, all of the walls, particularly the exterior walls, but had travelled to the interior walls, particularly in the corners. When you opened the door in the built-in wardrobe in the bedroom, it was absolutely disgusting. You could not have stored anything in there, and certainly not clothes. The bed and the bed clothes were completely covered in black mould. There were spores right across the room, on ceiling, floors, and coming from right up the walls. The solution from the housing executive, it's condensation. And a device was produced, and this needle was placed against the wall. There you are, it's condensation. There's not enough air travelling around the room. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, at the complete lack of compassion and empathy from the executive official, and I'll not embarrass him by naming him in this House. Well, I said, what is the solution then? He said, well, we'll drill a hole and we'll put up a vent, and you can open and close the vent. I said, these two young girls have got asthma. They have severe acute asthma. So what do they do in the winter with the holes in the wall and the vent when it's freezing? He hadn't thought of that. Mr. Principal Deputy Speaker, this House is in Silverstream Estate. And over the years I have raised it on many occasions with varying ministers. In fact, this current minister, I have raised this issue in the House at question time. I have written to the minister. I have met with the Chief Executive of the Housing Executive. I have met with the Permanent Secretary, current Permanent Secretary in the Department of Communities. And it's batted back and forward between the Housing Executive and the Department. But the reality, nothing is done in Silverstream Estate. Now, there was work carried out on a number of properties a number of years ago, and that was welcome. Many homeowners have bought their properties and they have carried out the work themselves. But there are still a sizable number of houses across the Silverstream and Tynedale estates that are having to deal with structural flaws, the structural flaws being Finlock guttering. And the Minister is well aware of this. And more recently, my colleague Paula Bradley, the Chair of the Committee, and my colleague Councillor Dale Pankhurst met with the Minister to raise this issue. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend. The problem is, you see, that these Finlock gutterings, when they get the moisture, they retain the moisture and they become like a sponge. And therefore, unless there is remedial action taken, serious remedial action taken, and it is expensive, I accept that, but some of these families have been enduring this for 20, 30 years. It is not acceptable in this day and age that people have to live in those conditions. So the time has come for this to be addressed. And I would today in this House ask the Minister to please address this issue for my constituents living in Silverstream and Tynedale. The time for action is now. And Minister, between yourselves and your department and the Housing Executive, please sort the problem out once and for all and let people live in dignity.